What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I have been very impatiently waiting on these 2022 models to show up. The day has finally come here at Timms. We got about 8 or 9 brand new ones, so I'm going to go over those with you in the next few days. However, today we're going to go over the 2022 Softail Fat Bob. This is the white sand pearl colorway. As you can see, two-tone with a little bit of black. This bike's gonna MSRP just a little over $19,500.
As always, I'll give you guys the quick walk around, just let you see the whole bike in case you haven't seen the new Fat Bob in person yet. Kind of give you a chance to check it out before we jump into all the details. I am a fan of this bike. Timms actually has a nice green used one with some bars, some exhaust that is possibly calling my name. We'll have to see. All right, so starting up front here, love this tank graphic, love this paint color. One thing I do want to point out, because it was hard for me to tell online, this is not, it's black, but it's not like dark black. So this would be Harley's like typical vivid black color here. And as you can see when we get them in the same frame, much different tone of black, a little lighter. So what it almost ends up looking like is, you know, almost like a beige and a super dark brown. Either way, I'm a fan. The little splash of orange looks really good. One of the things I had hoped for the 2022s was that all the Softail models, all the touring models that don't have a fairing would get the same digital gauge as the Sportster S. I think it was about 50-50 on that. When I would make that comment, you know, half of you guys would say, yeah, I'm a fan. Half of you guys would say, no, please don't. So those that didn't want it, this is a chance for you guys to celebrate because it didn't happen. For those of us that did, maybe next year, right? So anyway, you've got this small console, so the rest of the tank is really clean here. I know a lot of you guys have seen this, but for those that haven't, I'll show you really quickly. So what you have is a digital speedometer and a analog tachometer. You still get all your little warning lights around here. This digital readout's gonna give you a little bit more information than just your miles per hour. You have a digital gas gauge, so you can see the bars there. You can see how many miles. When you cycle through, you just hit your trip button here. As you can see, trip A, you can hold it down to reset it. We'll go ahead and do that. Trip B, same thing. That's gonna give you how many miles until empty. Pay close attention to that. You do not want to run these things out of gas. Your clock, and then it's going to tell you your RPM, which again, you do have here in analog form. I personally like the analog version of the Speedo better, even though I said I wanted the digital Speedo. I know that doesn't make sense. I just wanted navigation without having to clip my phone to the bars if I didn't want to. So single-sided gas cap, which I'm a fan of. No need in putting the dummy cap here to keep things symmetrical. What might have been cool is if Harley could have found a way to stick it here in the center, make that tank super clean. Didn't happen, doubt it's gonna happen, but you could always do the flush mount here if you wanna keep that looking a little bit smoother. As you see, you kind of have a drag style bar. They do have a little bit of pullback to them, but not a whole lot. One of the things I like is Harley has incorporated these adjustments. So if you want to roll these things forward, roll them backwards, you know exactly where they're at. Obviously they come zeroed out, and I honestly think that's probably where most people are going to want them. So moving on down, a couple people, including myself, thought that we were going to possibly get a 117 on this bike this year. That didn't happen, but it doesn't really matter because this 114 is still an absolute beast. Makes tons of power, and if you watch the channel, you'll know I always encourage opening this thing up. What's good is Harley does give you this open breather here. It's got a rain sock on it. For those that have never seen this, I'll pop it off. All this is for is if you get caught in the rain, it's gonna keep your breather from sucking in as much water. Not gonna hurt anything to run it, you know, every once in a while you get caught with it off like that, but you don't wanna wash your bike. You just don't wanna make a habit of getting water in there. Anyway, like I was saying, you do have the high flow air filter. So what I like to do is change my exhaust on a bike like this. Typically, I would run a 2-into-1 setup. And on this particular bike, that really cleans things up. You can see this wheel a little bit better, looks a lot better, sounds a heck of a lot better. When you do that, you do want to put a tuner on this thing. If you change the airflow in, the airflow out, need to tune the bike so that it runs its best. It kind of just opens things up. It's the equivalent of, say, a human breathing through a snorkel, taking the snorkel out of your mouth and breathing normally. That's kind of what happens. Harley has to ship these bikes this way for EPA regulations, so cut them a little slack on that. I know people like to say, oh, I shouldn't have to buy it and do stuff to it. Well, you don't. It's got plenty of power, plenty of speed, plenty of performance, but if you want that real Harley sound, you're gonna wanna open it up and you'll get a slight performance bump with that. While we are right here, I do wanna point out the adjustable shock. Now, all these Softail models are adjustable, but on some models you have to take off the seat. The Fat Bob is one of those exceptions where you don't. You just have this little dial here. You turn it in, you'll hear these clicks, and vice versa. So you're gonna wanna check your owner's manual and set that according to your weight. If you throw a passenger on the back, because they make it so easy, I would suggest adjusting it for the weight of you and the passenger now. I mean, they've given you the option to optimize the suspension. You might as well do it. Now, the Fat Bob does come equipped with the forward controls. Not a huge fan of the forwards, just for my riding style. I do prefer a mid. However, the forward is a little bit more comfortable on the super long rides, but I don't see a ton of guys doing like a ton of mileage on the Fat Bob in most cases. I know it does happen, but typically that's not the case. I would have liked to have seen a mid control on this. I know with that exhaust setup, that would kind of be a little bit of a challenge, but it can be done. So we'll work our way around to the front of this bike. You kind of see where it gets its name, the Fat Bob. Big, fat, wide front end, super wide front forks, the big fat tire, the LED light. Now this is a very divisive part on this bike for some people as well. People either love or hate this more rectangular shaped light. I'm a big fan. I love the small little circle, the standard lights that come on most models, but I like that this is different. Thing puts out a ton of light, looks really good. But you guys let me know, are you a fan of the Fat Bob headlight? Yes or no? Like I said, this is a big, meaty tire. This is gonna be a 150/80/16. So you got a 16-inch rim here. You'll see the tread pattern is very unique to the Fat Bob, kind of gives it that off-road look. But what I wanted to point out on here is one of the things that really sells me on this bike, especially at this price point, and that's you get inverted front end as well as dual disc front brakes. Now I won't go into all the ins and outs of the benefits of the inverted front end. It's just a far superior technology. I'm glad Harley's doing that on some models. I wish they would do it on all. Dual disc front brakes, not absolutely necessary, but it is really nice to have. Now moving around to the kickstand side, this would be a good chance to show you guys the controls on this bike. I know we mentioned their forward controls, but I do want to point out that these are a little bit more premium than what comes on, say, the Street Bob. I'll show you those. So these are the pegs that come on the Street Bob. As you can see, just not quite as high end as what's on the Fat Bob. We got a 48 right here, same thing. Maybe even a little less attractive than what's on the Street Bob. These are just bare bone foot pegs. Pretty much everyone's gonna swap those out. Helps the look, not super expensive, so it's a modification we see a lot of people make. So like I said, compared to those two, these are much more premium. You do have passenger pegs since this bike is set up for two-up riding, and they give you these same nice premium pegs on the back to match the front, which I'm a fan of. The seat. So the seat's got a unique look to it, unique to other Harley models at least. I haven't put a ton of miles on this stock seat, but I've never noticed it being uncomfortable on the rides that I have done on it. It's got a nice feel, like it feels really durable. It's hard to describe this finish on here, but it does feel very durable. The one thing I don't think is gonna fly if you're riding a passenger on the back is, I mean, I do have a big hand, but still, as you can see, it's not a whole lot for your passenger to sit on. So if you're gonna upgrade that, you might as well upgrade the whole seat, just give it that good look. And that's the trade-off with these seats is, the bigger the cushion you put on the back, the worse it looks. And yeah, you don't see it when you're on the bike, but let's be honest, when the bike's parked, the majority of us still want it to look cool. I know some people will disagree with that, but this is a younger guy's bike, so that is stuff that we care about. So we talked about the lighting up front. Let's talk about the lighting in the rear. You do have tail lights and turn signals built into the same housing, which I am a fan of. It keeps things a little cleaner. However, personally, I like a little more flush mount. I've seen some companies selling some really nice stuff. These aren't bad. It's just they stick out just a little bit, you know, just enough to annoy you. If I relocated those or went with something a little more streamlined, I would probably also relocate my tag. I do like it's got the little light. They're doing everything they have to do to keep you legal, but I would do the relocation that puts it down here and mounts it up and down versus side to side. I just don't love the look of it sticking out like that. Also, check your state laws, check your country laws, because I know people in other countries have commented before that the tag has to be in a certain place to be legal. I get all that, but if you're in a place where you can change it, I'd recommend doing so. Just cleaning up the back of this bike. I'll give you guys one more quick walk around before I give you my final thoughts on this bike. Like I said, I love this color. It's also gonna come in a black with a gray. So black here, gray here. Big fan of that color as well. Those are the only two options for the Fat Bob this year. Both of them are really, really good. Let me know down in the comments out of the two which one you like better. All right, guys, I've shown you the bike. I've given you the specs. I've given you the pricing. Based on all that information, is the Fat Bob a bike you'd be interested in? If so, what draws you to this bike? And if not, what turns you away from this bike? Personally, I love the Fat Bob. It's neck and neck with the Lowrider S. There's not a whole lot I would have to do to this bike to make it perfect for me. Little taller bars, maybe a small fairing, 2-into-1 exhaust, and maybe a cam or something later down the road. But I love the package that Harley's put together on this bike. So I'm curious to know how you guys feel about it. If you made it this far, obviously you liked the video, so please consider giving me a thumbs up. It helps me more than you know. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so, and I'll catch you on the next video.